Welcome everyone to Midweek Mysteries, and thank you all for being here. I am your host, Nick Ryan. If you're new to the show, Midweek Mysteries is a shorter version of our full-length Sunday episodes, where we also enjoy giving a personal shout-out to our newest supporters, so please be sure to tune in. If you're interested in supporting the podcast, you can become a patron at patreon.com/Paranormal Mysteries, or visit us over on buymeacoffee.com/paranormal to make a simple one-time donation. And as always, subscribing to the podcast and sharing it with your friends is one of the best ways to show your support, and we always appreciate it. Now let's see what today's storytellers have to say. Today's first Midweek Mystery comes to us from Eric. Eric's story is called Big White Boom. Eric says, "Hi Nick, I actually just got hooked on the podcast today. I recall something that happened to me a couple of years ago. I live in Georgia, and I'm not sure if my state is known for UFO sightings, but I have heard of people being abducted by aliens, and afterwards, having strange scars or marks on their body. I do believe in the paranormal and extraterrestrials. It is just impossible to me that we are the only life forms in the entire universe. There has to be something out there. Here is my story. My parents have been divorced for a couple of years now, and this happened about a year after it happened, and I was about 8 or 9. I do not remember the exact date or the year. One night I was at my father's house going to sleep, and I was sleeping until sometime in the middle of the night when I woke up. I had a bunk bed at the time, and I slept on the top bunk. My pillow was not faced towards the wall, so when I sat up in bed, I was facing my blinds. I woke up and looked at my blinds. The next thing that occurred was that I heard a loud boom, like a giant comet crashing into another, or a huge explosion like a bomb or a nuclear explosion. But the noise did not affect me, considering the obvious volume of the explosion. I just kept sitting in bed. As soon as the loud noise reached its peak, my vision turned completely white. All I saw was white. Even when I blinked, I saw white. But at this point, I remember being 2 inches from my blinds, not at my pillow where I was previously, but I remember not moving from my pillow. And even though I couldn't see anything, I knew where I was in my bed. Then, just as the loud boom stopped, my ears started to ring, louder than normal ear ringing. But I still saw white. Throughout this experience, I remember not being affected at all. No facial expressions, no reactions. I just remember sitting there, even though both noises were of great volume. The next thing I did was fall back asleep, and I remember falling asleep at the foot of my bed, near my blinds. But curiously enough, I woke up at my pillow, not at the foot of my bed, where I previously was. After that night, I have only told a handful of my friends, but one friend told me about exploding head syndrome, which is where people hear loud noises, such as gunshots or doors slamming in their heads. This happens, especially when people are stressed. With my parents' divorce and my grandmother's recent passing at the time, I would say that I probably was stressed. But an 8-year-old wouldn't know how to identify stress, which is one reason that I don't think this was exploding head syndrome. But I was thinking, and I haven't heard of anybody seeing white the entire time that was happening in the research that I have done. Plus, people say they are always jolted awake when hearing these noises, and ever since that night, I've had a little scar on my wrist that runs vertically on my forearm. I asked my mom what I got it from before writing this, and she has no idea what it's from. I'm not saying that it wasn't exploding head syndrome, but I'm also not saying that it wasn't extraterrestrial. I do believe something happened. I'm just not sure what. Thanks for listening, even though I may not know entirely what happened, and definitely not your most amazing story. Love the podcast, and keep doing great work. Sincerely, Eric." Our next midweek mystery comes to us from Kat. Kat's story is called My Guardian Angel. Kat says, "Hi Nick. I've been listening for nearly a year, and I'm finally getting around to sharing my experience. I guess I am surprised that there aren't more positive experiences, since I grew up hearing those kind of stories from my father's side of my family. My grandfather, Nicholas, had prophetic dreams, and although we were an Air Force family and lived all over the country while growing up, my grandpa would always call from Massachusetts to tell my father what he had dreamt. One night he called my dad to say that my sister Margaret had fallen from the slide at school and broken her arm. No sooner did my dad hang up with my grandpa than the phone rang, and it was the school asking for my parents to meet them at the hospital. My sister had a compound fracture in her arm from a fall off the slide. There were many experiences like this or others. One instance I remember is this. My grandpa was a fisherman. He came from Newfoundland and settled in New Bedford, Massachusetts. He went out on boats, fishing for cod, back when there was no GPS and no refrigeration. Everything they caught was salted and stored in the hold below. They didn't come back until the hold was full. Before he was married, he would get off one boat and look for another to work on. As he headed down to the end of the dock, he saw his brother in front of the boat that he was headed for. His brother Patrick had died at sea off the coast of Newfoundland years earlier. Patrick was there at the end of the dock, waving my grandpa off. He kept saying, "Go back, Nicky. This one, she ain't for you. Go back." My grandpa turned around and found another boat. The other boat went out and was lost at sea. I am sharing these few stories because I only ever heard about benevolent spirits or relatives helping or issuing warnings or confirming decisions, etc. Make no mistake, I am not a Pollyanna. I know there are bad spirits, entities, and genuine evil out there. I know of it. I know it is out there. I just thought I would share the good side of the supernatural. My angel experience happened in the early 80s. I worked at a restaurant in Massachusetts. The restaurant closed around 2 a.m. on Friday and Saturday nights. I had worked a 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. shift on Friday, and when someone called in for Friday night, I picked up the 6 p.m. to close shift Friday night. I was scheduled to work 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Saturday, and when the same girl called in for Saturday night, I picked up her shift after a 2-hour break and worked 8 p.m. to close on Saturday night. That night, I left the restaurant around 2:30 a.m. on Saturday morning in a 76 Camaro. The restaurant was at the back of a large lot with other stores in it. I drove alongside a few stores until I got to the end of the lot and swung left onto a service road that led to the main road. As I swung left, a plant that I had been given just that night was in the front seat, and it fell over. This started a sequence of events that happened in seconds. I heard the plant fall over as I was coming out of the turn. With my left hand on the wheel at 12 o'clock and my right hand reaching over, I touched the pot to stand it back up, and I glanced to the right. What I didn't realize was that when I leaned with my right hand, my left hand followed while on the wheel at 12 o'clock. In that split second that I looked to the right, I steered the Camaro dead center into the base of a light pole. At the moment, my head was turned, and I was leaning over. I felt the impact. I immediately looked forward and cracked my right cheekbone on the steering wheel at 3 o'clock, breaking my cheekbone. My head snapped back, and I saw the base of the light pole moving backward. I slammed on the brake, and that sent my head forward hard enough to honk the horn with my nose, breaking it. My head then snapped back again, and I saw the front windshield cracking, the crack spreading. Through the windshield, I could see the pole where it meets the base break. I could see the pole falling forward toward me. I was stunned. It was slow motion. I was watching the pole fall as I was thinking, I should do something. At that moment, I heard a voice in my left ear, so loud, so commanding, say, "Get out." Nick, it was so loud, so commanding, that I distinctly remember my whole body jolted. I remember that the heels of my feet left the floorboard. I didn't turn my head completely to the left, but from the corner of my eye, I saw my left arm flare out to the left, as if to open the door. I don't remember touching the door at all. The next thing I know, I am lifting my head. I am on my hands and knees, 10 feet away facing the car, watching the light pole crush the car. It was completely disconnected from the base, and wires were snapping and sparking. The pole was hanging off the car from either end. The car was crushed. Before I could manage to stand up, a couple came over the embankment down to me. They saw the light pole go down from the main road above and called 911. I had a broken cheekbone, broken nose, and a concussion. I also had no recollection about how I got out of the car. Since my face was black and blue and I was concussed, I was not able to work, and I had a lot of time to review the events. I could not understand how I got out of the car. I did not actually touch the door handle. I had not even put my seatbelt on yet, and the officer told me that that was probably the only time in my life that not wearing my seatbelt saved me. Those old cars had seatbelts that were hard to fasten. You would have to pull the lap and shoulder belt across and then lift your hip to get to the clasp. It would have taken the few precious seconds I had to find the clasp and undo it. The fire department had to get my purse from the passenger side floorboard with a tool because the car was so flat and the doors wouldn't open. One question was, why would I close the driver's side door? The answer is, I didn't. How did I get out of the car? As far as exiting the vehicle, anyone who has been in a Camaro knows about those bucket seats. How do you exit a car with bucket seats? You have to turn at the waist to get out of the car. If I did open the door and managed to turn and exit the car, I should have had my back to the car. I should have been right next to the car. If I did open the car door and just throw myself out, I would have been on my side, with my feet still in the car, right? Why was the driver's side door closed? When I was in the car just before I heard his voice, I saw the light pole falling forward. I had so little time. And then there's the voice. As I write this now, I can still hear his voice. So time went by. I returned to work and life as usual, but I never forgot my experience, and I came to the conclusion that I was pulled from my car by an angel. My angel. Fast forward to 2010. I met some like-minded people who felt, like I felt, that there is more than life and death, that there is life after death. We formed a small group of 4. My 3 team members are all sensitives to one degree or another. One in particular is a strong, gifted medium. She told me there was someone with me. Another confirmation I received was on our first big investigation. I was at a farm with a few outbuildings and acres of land. I'm a photographer, and I brought my equipment with me. I took hundreds of pictures while there. When we were reviewing our evidence later, I noticed that at least 1/3 of the pictures I took had this dark half-moon shadow in the bottom center of the picture. Interestingly, those odd pictures corresponded with EVPs we caught, or notes taken by members of the team about what they felt or saw. For my part, I was concerned about what my Canon Rebel was doing. Then it appeared again, at another investigation. I began to realize that it couldn't be my camera or the lenses I was using, because if the inside was dirty, it should and would happen for every picture. When I went on vacation, it didn't happen at all. One of the team members suggested it might be my angel, letting me know he was there protecting me. So, I thanked him for his love and protection. I told them that I know he is there for me, and asked him to not show up in the pictures anymore. It has never happened again. About a year later, one of the psychics we know offered to talk to my angel for me. I found out that his name is Michael, and he did pull me from the car. I am sure that on at least 2 other occasions I have been kept from harm. Everyone has an angel whispering encouragement and guidance. You just have to learn how to listen. I have other stories to share about my family and investigations we have done, but I know I have kept you long enough. I hope this isn't too long to share. Feel free to contact me with questions. Respectfully, Kat. Our next story of the night comes from Jennifer. Jennifer's story is called Old Man at the Cemetery. Jennifer says, "Hello. I have been a listener of this podcast for some time now. I look forward to new episodes every week. My story isn't that scary or wild, just something I remember from when I was a child. My mom and my 2 sisters were at the cemetery visiting my grandparents. My sisters and I were running around the cemetery playing, and we noticed an old man sitting in a lawn chair next to a grave. We ran around one side of the buildings chasing one another. When we came back around, the man was gone. In my opinion, the man couldn't have gotten up and walked away that quickly. And secondly, if the man was a spirit, why would he be visiting a loved one's grave? This always has baffled me. Maybe the man didn't make it to the other side when he passed away. Maybe someone can help me answer this question. It has always been something that I've thought about often. Thank you for your time." Our last midweek mystery comes to us from Eddie, and Eddie's story is called A Young One Terrified. Eddie says, "I am new to this podcast, but I am hooked already. I love to hear all the stories that people write in and send to you. They are super interesting, and most of them I believe because I am 50 years old, and I have seen a lot of weird things happen while I have been alive. With that being said, this story is true and drove me to believe in the paranormal. When I was about 8 to 10 years old, so about 40 years ago, we had a get-together with some family that was in from Delaware. We all were at my aunt's house, which was about 100 years old. After a long day of reminiscing with the family, all of us decided to just sleep here overnight. The kids slept downstairs on the floor, and all the adults slept in the bedrooms on the upper floors. It was a 3-story house. Anyway, really early in the morning, something woke me up, and I sat straight up, and something guided me to the foot of the stairs. I remembered looking up toward that area, towards the 2nd floor, that is out of view. All of a sudden, I see a woman wearing a white dress, slowly moving down the stairs. But it seemed as if she was walking in a white cloud, but I noticed that she was transparent. I could not move my body whatsoever, and she got closer to the flat part of the stairs. She looked down towards me as I was standing at the bottom of the stairs. I was scared, but not terrified, until she came closer and closer to me, until she was standing right in front of me, and she then opened her eyes, and her eyes were pitch black. She then opened her mouth and let out this blood-curdling scream and scared the hell out of me to the point where I started urinating on myself. I woke up the next morning with my night pants soaked, and I didn't remember how I even got there. I did tell my parents and my aunt, but I don't really think that they believed me. But I know it happened. This experience drove me to become a paranormal investigator later in life in Texas. Thanks for all you do, and thank you for giving people an avenue to tell their stories. Keep up the good work." As we come to the end of this edition of Midweek Mysteries, I'd like to say thank you to all of you for tuning in and supporting the podcast, and a special thank you goes out to Eric, Kat, Jennifer, and of course Eddie, for writing in and sharing their experience with all of us. If any of you have thoughts, advice, or a similar experience that you'd like to share with one of tonight's storytellers, you can email me, and I'll be sure to forward your message onto them. If you've witnessed something unexplainable, and you'd like to have your story shared on the podcast, please contact me at paranormalmysteriespodcast@gmail.com. Or you may visit us at paranormalmysteriespodcast.com and click on the Tell Your Story link. All of our contact information can be found in the show notes. Until next time, I hope you all have a safe and healthy rest of the week, and we'll see you back here on Sunday with our next full-length episode. From all of us at the Paranormal Mysteries Podcast, thank you so much for listening, and please remember, don't wait for the unknown to come to you. Get out there and find it.